It is February 19th, 2016. This is Watchman News, and I am Mike Callahan. We have a story coming out not that long ago from RT News, and it's NATO storing tanks and military hardware in Cold War-era Norwegian caves. NATO is developing tanks and deploying tanks and military equipment to a series of caves in Norway. They have been largely redundant since the end of the Cold War, but now the alliance is stocking up on hardware which will be deployed near NATO's border with Russia. It may seem like something from a James Bond movie, but NATO has been operating a slick operation in hillside caves built in Norwegian countryside for decades. However, now the U.S.-led alliance feels it's time to beef up its military presence to prepare for what it perceives as a Russian threat. We have pre-positioned gear both in caves and on ships, and it allows forces from the United States to come out and fall in on gear that is already forward deployed versus bringing all that gear with us, William Bentley from the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Brigade said in a video released by the U.S. Marine Corps Forces Europe and Africa last week. Wow. Among other things, the caves, which are classified, will be equipped with M1A1 Abrams tanks and amphibious assault vehicles in order to make sure NATO is prepared for any potential crisis. The cave complex is staffed by around 100 Norwegian and U.S. personnel, while it contains enough equipment to support in the region of 15,000 Marines, CNN reports. NATO plans to undertake a training exercise in the not-too-distant future called Cold Response 16 and will use some of the 6,500 pieces of equipment stored in the cave for the drills. It always takes time to deploy forces to a certain area. When you have material equipment pre-positioned, you can fly in personnel and it will be faster ready to conduct operations, Major General Yngve Odlo, Chief of Norwegian Defense Staff Operations, said, adding that Norway's forces have been working with their U.S. colleagues for the last 10 to 15 years in places like Afghanistan. On Tuesday, President Barack Obama said that the Russian armed forces are the second most powerful military in the world, although just 2 years earlier he had described Russia as nothing more than a regional power. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter said in November that Russia was challenging American preeminence and Washington's so-called stewardship of the world order. While Russia is concerned about NATO's military buildup along its borders, Moscow has said it would be insane to even consider an attack on the country allied to the alliance. I think that only an insane person and only in a dream can imagine that Russia would suddenly attack NATO. I think some countries are simply taking advantage of people's fears with regard to Russia, said President Vladimir Putin in June. However, this is not stopping NATO from pushing ever closer to Russia's borders. Washington has already announced plans to quadruple spending for its military presence in Europe to $3.4 billion to deter Russian aggression. On February 10th, NATO defense ministers agreed on an enhanced forward presence in the eastern part of our alliance, according to NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. In November, Norway welcomed the first two of 22 Lockheed Martin F-35 fighter jets, which it sees as a countermeasure to what Oslo considers Russia's boosting military capabilities in the region. Each plane cost in the region of $150 million. The last time I can remember there was this kind of hostile military force on Russia's borders is when the Nazis invaded Russia in 1941, Stephen Cohen, a professor of Russian studies at New York University, told RT. There has never been anything like this. Russia's not threatening any country along its border, and it's not turning European countries against each other. But we know the Russian reaction. My kids know the Russian reaction. It's a tit for tat as we lived through the last Cold War, he added. In November, Norway welcomed the first two of 22 Lockheed Martin F-35 fighter jets, which it sees as a countermeasure to what Oslo considers Russia's boosting military capabilities in the region. And once again, each plane cost in the region of $150 million. And note how they talk about pre-deploying equipment. And then ask yourself, how come all these sheriff's departments have all this military equipment and all these military vehicles? Next thing you know, we'll be hearing about the local county having a F-35. Wow, it's crazy. It's building up, and Russia's really not doing anything. That's what I don't understand. You know, we did the same with we do the same with Iran. Iran hasn't attacked anybody, but we're building up all around them and just ready and eager to go in. It's insane, folks. It's insane. Get ready. We're going to need to buckle up real quick.